Welcome to the first issue insider or comic insider. This is where I will talk about the significance of plot lines and character choices that are made in certain issues. This will not be um, reoccurring for every comic, but it will happen occasionally when I feel that it's necessary. So the dynamic between Dave and Matthew is they are polar opposites essentially in the beginning. So Dave has already reached the point where he'll do anything to survive, whereas Matthew's still trying to stay in his better nature. And so you'll see that throughout the issue, Matthew and Marty both try to appeal to Dave's better nature, and Dave is just not taking the bait at all. And so at halfway through, Matthew realizes there's no going back. So the moment when Allison steps out of the hospital to sort of save the day alongside Dennis, it may seem kind of random how the events play out, but if you go back and look, Allison is actually uh, doing sign language, and Matthew picks up on this. You go back and look. When she steps out, she's doing the sign language for the letter D in one frame, and then the next frame U C K to spell duck. Matthew catches on to this, and then Allison says, "Now is the right time to do the right thing." And there's emphasis on the word "now," as you can see in the actual frame. Matthew, of course, picks up on this when Allison says, "Do you understand?" If you look back, as Matthew's hands are tied, he does the symbol for yes. Um, so that's why the events played out the way they did. That's why Matthew suddenly ducks and Dennis shoots and kills Dave. I thought that was a really interesting thing to put in, and I'm hoping to add sign language to the story a little more because I feel like an apocalypse where the dead are drawn by sound, sign language is a natural adaptation um, to add to your arsenal to get further in that world. Now on to the main reason that I wanted to make this the first issue insider. Uh, so Matthew has this epiphany when talking to Bailey. Bailey mentions that it wasn't long ago that our group was in that position, and by that position she means having all of our guns taken away by this other group. Um, and Matthew tries to do mental gymnastics essentially to um, to rationalize what's happening to these other people, some of which he had literally just saved their lives earlier in the day. And he asserts that, yeah, they'll be all right, they'll bounce back just like we did. And then it hits him what happened when our group bounced back. We took revenge on the people that took our guns to begin with, and then we tried to kill them all. And then when we tried to kill them all, we thought we succeeded, we failed, and they came back and ruined everything. And ultimately got Matthew's mom killed and got so many other people killed. So in this one little moment, Matthews decides that the only thing that he was going to prioritize of doing the right thing is doing the safe thing so that that no one else got hurt in their group. And ultimately that means he had to make one of the hardest choices ever. And he tells Esco to that we have to essentially kill all those unarmed people and massacre them. Now uh, Esco is quite surprised to hear this come from Matthew of all people. There are certain characters in our group like Matthew and Bailey who serve sort of as a moral compass typically for the group. Not all the time, of course, but sometimes they do. Most of the time. And to hear Matthew say they need to kill that all those people need to die, it really shocks Esco. But for Matthew to say that, there must be a good reason. So he quickly goes along with it. Um, and so do many of the others. Now, I don't actually show in the comic who does all the killing aside from Esco, but I'll go ahead and tell you here that the ones that shot were Dennis, Esco, Matthew, Haley, and Lauren. Um, yeah, so this is a big turning point for our group and for a character like Matthew, who hadn't really had to do things like that unless he was truly desperate. Um, and so we'll see how this sort of survive at all costs mentality plays out for our group. And much like with the actual show, um, we get into morally gray territory with our characters. And I'm hoping that I will build some strong storylines and interpersonal relationships for our characters where they understand why they have to do these things, but it doesn't make it any easier. And so this concludes the first issue Insider. I hope this clears up some questions you might have had about this comic if you had any. And I hope you enjoyed. And let me know if you want me to continue this format.